going to be in the Vinaya as well. Isn't it? Because the Buddha interestingly called his teachings, he never called it Buddhism. His name was not Buddha, isn't it? He calls it Dhamma Vinaya. Very interesting. I talk to you today not as a simple monk. The reason is, I was trained for 5.5 years in the most rigid Buddhist seminary in Sri Lanka, which was considered and still considered the best seminary, because it was very seldom to have a Buddhist seminary as such. They followed very strict Catholic lines, because the monk who was the director, principal, came from a Catholic area of Sri Lanka. You know, Sri Lankan Catholics are more Catholic than Western Catholics. Many Asians are like that, isn't it? So, there we were almost tortured. From the modern point of view, it was totally child abuse. From a human rights point of view, we should take them to the courts. Yes, we were beaten till blood. Till blood was all young monks. The rigidity was such, sometimes some of them left within a week. At my time there were 80 of us, only 10 now remains in the row. All 70 disrobed. And some were mentally deranged. One by the name Wappa, I must say the name or else you might think it's a fanciful story. I'm a realist, I tell you what is there and what was there. He was so frustrated with the robe, he took his robe, put in the toilet, which was not flushed, and disappeared and disrobed. So, that was quite a tragic experience to me. So I come from that kind of place, 5.5 years of interesting tolerance. But I learned one thing, to read the entire Vinaya Pitaka plus the Trivitaka by the age of 17. And that too in 3 languages. Then I qualified in the exams of the Vinaya, not from there, from outside, and became a bachelor in Buddhist law, a religious study. Then I studied law later, that years ago, 10, 15 years back in London, 3 years. And 3 years ago, the Supreme Council of Monks in Sri Lanka, they bestowed on me, they made me a Lord Eminent in Buddhist scriptures. So I feel qualified to talk on this matter. There must be a reason why a monk wants to choose such a controversial matter, isn't it? Everybody likes to keep quiet or close one eye, or both eyes. Leave it. That's the normal Tidapa attitude, isn't it? But not only Malaysia, all over the place. Now the first and foremost thing you have to understand is, monks and nuns rules, though I don't mention much about nuns because the program was too long, they are incorporated almost in the same system. These are not regulations. Like in the army, they are not laws as such. They are meant for practical and pragmatic purpose only, for good reasons. Not law for the sake of law. It is morality, not legality. And for what? For very interesting 10 purposes, where the Buddha have declared beautifully. For the comfort of the monks, not discomfort. Sangha Suttutaya, Sangha Pasutaya. For the smooth running of the monk's system, he says very beautifully. And for the welfare of the Vinaya, to keep it, but not regimented. For a psychological purpose, for liberation. So 10 reasons he gave, very interesting. 10 purposes. For those who have faith, to grow in their faith. For those who do not have, to come up in their faith. And for the devotees, to grow in their faith when they look at the monks and nuns. And so on and so forth. A democratic system, a socialist system for the happiness of all. Not only the monks and nuns, but for the laity and others as well. The first point, many of you might have noticed and read before, that the monks have 227 rules. That is wrong. Look at the board. It is 220. There is a monk who has written a book called Monk's Precepts, and many people read this. There are 10 big mistakes in that book by Bhikkhu Dhamma. The 7 remaining ones are not rules. They are mediation processes, judging systems, judicial processes, legal processes. They are not rules. So you must be careful what you listen and read also. That is why it's interesting in some of our countries we become monks when we are very young. We learn the scriptures by heart. We can memorize the books and tell not only the figures, live in it, grow in it. The problem in Singapore, Malaysia, some of them get into the ropes very fast, even in Western countries, and become very dogmatic. They make a lot of mistakes. Now, there are 7 classes of precepts or rules, not 8. That is also being misunderstood sometimes. We can say that all in Pali, but I don't want to waste your time here today. And then, interestingly, the Buddha was not a lawmaker. Though 1/3 of Buddhism, the Tripitaka, is on law for monks and nuns equally. It took him 20 years after enlightenment. Then only he made a law for monks. Until then, everything was not taken in a very legal sense. No rules were made. Why? Not necessary. Only when there's a purpose, you make a rule. See, that is the practicality of Buddhism, of Buddha. The rules were made when there was a cause, when there was a reason. Not for the sake of making rules, not for the sake of law as such. And not to make monks prisoners of rules. The rules are meant for liberation, to be freed from everything, including desire, including hatred, including ignorance, including the Vinaya, finally. Not to stick to anything. Even the Dhamma is for not for clinging, for just crossing over. He said, don't cling to the Dhamma, isn't it? Likewise, we must not cling to the Vinaya, because clinging to the rituals will not allow you to get to the first stage of Taman, to become a stream entrance, stream winner. The first thing you must get rid of is Sakkaya-ditthi, me, myself, mine. And the third point is clinging to rituals, clinging to precepts. Buddhism shows that precepts is only a beginning. So it says, morality, not mere morals. I'm quoting from the sutras. How wonderful. Morality for a purpose. No absolute morality. Everything is dependent on something. They are relative. No absolutes. And then, out of the many Buddhas, 24 or 28 or more in Mahayana Buddhism, the Buddha Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabu, in their times, no rules were ever made for the monks. But in